another 10 images, and the those in color, and the agenda wasn't working. By the time I figured that out, it was too late for the library.
I don't know if I'm more worried about the historical stuff or about the.
And there was no internet. Well, there was internet, but it was satellite internet. And so, I mean, let anybody tell you that satellite internet is just as good as cable or DSL.
Yeah, I'm just hoping it's not very
Not on the course.
So, Sarah told me to
I could not. I couldn't use it on my email. Uploading pictures, apparently downloading anything. So I am 2 classes behind.
Yeah, you want to ask D5?
Nothing's read for today because
I was actually really happy I couldn't find this one. The VTA voice system, and I guessed. And I was like,
mindful that I did my best, and it was out of my
yeah.
Look at this pretty skirt. Have you? This is one of the best skirts. I wanted to. Yeah.
Okay, so Nora,
I think I can remember most of it. Yeah. No mindfulness affected only.
yeah, I feel like I'm going into it with a mix. Like I feel like I know what this is, but when I was done to take a test, he scares me. So I'm gonna be like. I don't think that's because of what I'm saying. I would like this is going down. That's what we're working for.
Like that, but he doesn't want to listen to any of this.
No, but then there's like it's
It's really fun because I'm just there and that's good. Later on after we were talking about it, it's like.
How are you? Because I didn't know that.
You're still young. It takes the next 2 more times and you're like, it'll be fine.
Paradigm shifts are good.
It happens all the time. Don't freak out.
It's the one that you're electrically stimulated. It's not glass.
Oh, they are stressful.
What are the catacombs? Yeah, definitely. In North America.
All the animals live.
Oh, yeah.
There's no cars.
My mom only
Great yourself.
I had my chip in my mouth like this.
Oh, you got me beat.
There was very long time.
You started typing it. I have more of a variety. I have one hamster now, one guinea pig, more cats, and a dog, and a turtle. I was
I can understand.
$3 versus small.
Just share that with somebody.
That's a good journal idea.
That's what I'm
Probably.
Obviously, I understand
Obviously,
that's
that's
one,
what you're used to.
but seriously, I don't even need
But
this.
I think that's something
Right.
expect that,
I was like, this is not post op. It's
it's nothing like, it's not intense or anything, so.
Do you want to be 500? They're the same. And then all swimmers have a new swimmer.
Grass and everything on the roof. Or their goats.
Oh, it's probably.
Yeah, goats like stuff on it.
It might be. Where's the 1 to 5 comfort, M2 is hard, M3 is involved.
That's really cute.
Which one is that? Acceptance G is just for pain.
Good morning.
Well, we won't know until right after this one.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Come back. So you practice something at home? Try. How long?
This weekend, I totally forgot.
Oh really?
Yeah. I was really, really busy and I didn't think of it. I should have, because I was busy.
It's your medicine.
Yeah, it would have been nice.
Your medicine. You test that. How long? Huh? How long? How long? How long for each sit?
Well, the longest I've done it was for like an hour, but that was because it was helping me sit still while I was at acupuncture. So I came to like 900 breaths.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh good.
And it really helped. But my mind wandered it. I had to cut that out. But so that might not be completely accurate. But yeah, I've been practicing mindfulness and meditation. It really helps. And I was practicing some of the sleeping techniques last night because I got woken up at 3 in the morning. And so instead of like trying to make myself go back to sleep, I just didn't worry about it and tried to follow the advice of strong.
So when you walk to the trail, you walk mindfully because it's dangerous.
Oh yeah, I was definitely mindful of each breath I took because it was a struggle.
Oh yeah. Wow, it's too high, too
Yeah,
steep.
it was too high and it was, and the altitude was too high and the trail was way too steep.
Oh really?
So.
You have any garden or you walk by yourself with your husband?
I was with my husband, so, but it was kind of, as I said, he's disabled, so it was one
It's
of
safe or it is safe trail?
It was supposed to be a safe trail, but they lied. So, I would hate to see somebody try to push somebody in a wheelchair up that trail. I mean, it was literally, it felt like a 45-degree,
Really? Wow.
Incline.
It's really steep. So you walk around the top and go down like this?
No, it's straight
Really?
up. Yeah, it's not. It wasn't a zigzag or anything. So,
Wow.
and then you get up to the top, and they have a lookout tower that again climbed, and it's supposed to be a gorgeous view. But the day it was raining, so we got to see a very nice what the inside of a cloud looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So
You can smell the cloud.
yeah, it did. It smelled absolutely wonderful. It was the freshest air I've smelled in probably forever. So.
But when you went down, it is really dangerous.
That's when it convinced me that I wasn't over exaggerating how I felt, because going up, it's hard to tell what the incline was, but going down and realizing, even with the walking shoes I had on, that I was starting to slip. That's when I realized it was.
Especially when this was raining too,
Yeah.
right?
So.
You tried it?
Just 2 minutes a day.
That's fine. You tried it too?
Last night I did it for a little bit. I didn't really know how long it was. I just was really kind of stressed out, so I just tried to take a minute instead of focusing on the other things, just try to focus on the breathing. So.
How are you?
I've been practicing at least 1 or 2 minutes every day, and then I've been trying a lot harder to use the things we learned from emotional regulation. I've been trying to apply those daily, and I did mindful walking this morning.
Plenty of ways, so the four approaches, right? So that's the next one. Wednesday, we will assign you to pick and choose the techniques that you like to write about leadership skill. Have you tried it?
Yeah, I haven't been doing it like consistently, but I do it before tests. So there for a couple of minutes before taking tests.
Yeah. It's helpful when before you taking the test, you close your eye for a minute. That's all.
I didn't meditate, unfortunately, but I did pay more attention to for some reason, how I ate this. I cooked a lot.
Oh, okay.
I tried.
You have good food, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You try it?
Yeah, I tried like this week because just got a test coming up and lots of work, so try to do like 5 minutes every day and see how much work.
So for the regular meditators like us, sometimes we need to make a judgment. But for me, afternoon is better. Late afternoon, 5, 6 o'clock, we have more energy. In the morning, sometimes we may feel not dizzy, but feel sleepy. Okay, let us start for a few minutes, please. Okay, start with 1 minute. So again, please relax yourself. Count your breath naturally. Do 1 minute first.
Oh, 15, 10.
I think it was 14. I don't want to say.
Okay.
12.
13, 14.
Okay. So you miss? No. 1 minute is easy, right? Okay, we do 2. Did you miss anything? It's okay. Okay, so let's start. Yesterday. Okay, so start with today we talk about personality development. Somehow it's pretty important, right? As much as we understand our mind, this kind of development is so important because if we know how to develop ourselves, if we know how to handle our life, could handle other people's life, could help other people, could handle other things. If we don't know how to handle our life, it's impossible to help other people. Okay, so the first one describes how mindfulness affects self-awareness. It's easy, right? So who does this one? Go one.
Could have been more.
Yeah. What was that? I forgot the list. Yes, she's here. Oh, Morgan, she's not here. Okay. Okay, so it's pretty obvious, right? So how mindfulness affects self-awareness? Again, we do go back to the definition of mindfulness. Mindfulness means ability to recall, to remember, and self-awareness means self-consciousness at all times. When there's self-consciousness at all times. So this is one particular practice that is so popular in Buddhist tradition. It's so important. It's been ability to recall, to remember what to do all the times. So basically in Buddhism we have what we call the four cornerstones. Okay. Standing, walking, sitting, and lying down. That means in all activities you have to be mindful. Let's talk about the disadvantages or the problems of sitting without mindfulness. I remember when I was young, in the school we played with each other. So one of our friends, when we know that they get into they sit, we sit out. you know, right? You play when we're young, right? When they sit out, they fall down. We laugh, right? But that's why. That's absent of sitting mindfully, right? And of course, sometimes we sit, we may not recognize what we are sitting, right? And when we walk, right? Sometimes, right? When you walk to the trail, especially only when we encounter some kind of difficulties or dangerous situations, we would be mindful, right? Otherwise, like from the parking lot to the class, we just walk sometimes without take notice as we're walking. Is that right? Most of the time. But what happens? Sometimes we stumble on the rock, right, at the block, that we may not pay attention underneath our feet, right, on the ground. So, and sitting, even sometimes we don't know what we're standing for, right? Walking, lying down, and it delayed to walking, starting. We know, right? especially when you work on your paper, right? When you write in, but your mind still wander around, you might not focus your mind enough to gather information that you're supposed to write about. Right? And when you're talking, what you sometimes, right? Sometimes we talk, but we don't know what we're talking about. Is that right? And sometimes we say something meaningless or something that may offend our friends and other people. That's later we regret. Sorry, I don't mean that. Right? And of course, we devalue ourselves. We devalue our dignity. And what happens with our thinking if we're not mindful? Yeah, everything. And when we talk, we could not organize our thought, especially when you in front of people, right? Hundreds of people. If you could not recognize your thought, if you could not organize your thinking, right? You talk here and there, and people might not understand what you're talking about. So you have to be mindful in every action. That's called mindfulness and self-awareness. They work together, hand in hand. To recall, to remember, and awareness to recognize what you do all the time. Of course, it's blessed for us to have what they call ICT. Remember, you don't need to sit in meditation, but like you say, cooking. That's a form of mindfulness, right? Sweeping the floor, right? It's a form of mindfulness. Of course, it depends if you have more times. If you later on, if you dedicate your life for meditation, you need to sit more. Sitting is one of the stable position that we can pursue. But doesn't mean that we could not be mindful with any other activities. Like today you have interview, right? You be mindful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You be mindful with whichever thing they say, they ask you, right?
Yeah, at least I'll try to be to keep from wondering about other things.
And you anticipate any questions?
Yeah.
Okay. You prepare for the question, right?
Yes.
And remember, don't expect.
Mm-hmm.
Don't expect too much.
Don't expect too much out of myself.
And from them too.
Okay.
Remember that. Right. What happens if you have too much expectation when you walk into the room to have that interview, reduce interview for the whole week? What do you think? What do you feel?
I mean, if you have a lot of expectations, I guess you're more likely to get down on yourself if it doesn't fulfill your expectations. And I guess personally, I would probably be more likely to kind of, get a little depressed, like, oh man, that didn't go how I wanted to go.
Like we discussed before, the more we put the expectation, if we get that, we over excited, right? If we could not get, we'll be depressed. So it's just learning experience. Try our best and get respond to any question that they ask in the mindful way. Okay, anyway, so that is mindfulness and self-awareness in any circumstances. It's so helpful. Okay, so that's the next one. That's the first one. The next one, Jessica, number 2.
So mine was about how mindfulness can help with self-knowledge.
Yes, what means self-knowledge?
I kind of thought it was sort of taking it one step further than self-awareness. It's sort of your own understanding of your behaviors, feelings, patterns of thinking, and sort of you're also able to accurately perceive how others view you. Sort of like the extent to which you know yourself in terms of how you're going to respond in certain situations, things like that. And from what I read, there's several like blind spots that can kind of block your path to getting accurate and like effective self-knowledge. And one of those has to deal with what's referred to, from what I read, as an informational barrier, which is just referring to like the quality and quantity of information that is out there that we can actually use. So this means like maybe we can't perceive our nonverbal behavior. Maybe we're doing stuff that we're not aware of that other people can see that we don't necessarily see. And the other one, the one that I thought was really interesting is a motivational barrier.
Yes.
Is what it was called. And it's kind of like how it's natural to sort of spend your life like cultivating yourself and your personal identity. And I think you try really hard to preserve that idea at all costs sometimes. So if something comes along to contradict that, or someone says something that doesn't fit with your idea of yourself, then from what I read and from what I understand, you sort of don't necessarily believe it. You sort of back away from it because you've got such an ingrained sense of who you are. So how can mindfulness help with these things? I mean, it's kind of like what we already said, just to pay really close attention to your physical self so that maybe you know how you're fidgeting. Like I talk with my hands constantly. I know that I do, and I still can't stop it for some reason. And then the other one is to not evaluate or not judge how someone may perceive you if that goes against your own perception.
Okay, so the two barriers, first one is information, right? Information barriers, right? The second one is motivation or motivation. So why information barrier? Information barriers block your self-knowledge. Why? Can you elaborate?
I think because maybe we get misinformation, or it's not quite, it's kind of ambiguous maybe.
Can you give an example?
Let's say maybe, well, something I can remember is most feedback we receive is usually positive about our personality. So if you hear that over and over and over again, that type of information is not, I mean, you don't necessarily say something or hear something negative about your personality, so maybe you don't take that into account.
Okay.
I don't know for sure.
Okay. How about motivation barriers?
I mean, it's, for me, I think it's sort of when something contradicts how you feel about yourself and your ego or your identity, maybe. I'm not sure.
Here in this article, thank you. This is good knowledge. There's two components. Okay, so what informational barriers, that's caused by lack of information or lack of quality of information. So like we cannot know the internal state of mind of other people. That's one thing. We can access other people internal state, and so we don't know, we don't have any knowledge about their state of mind to compare to us. And also we don't, we are not always aware of non-verbal clue that sometimes that we give to other, since we cannot see ourselves from the third person. Let's say. Sometimes we could not recognize our voice Sometimes when let's say when we're angry, we raise our voice, but we could not recognize ourselves, right? When we shy, we talk to stop and so forth. We could not recognize us as lack of information. So basically, it's difficult to access objective information about ourselves. We often lack unbiased evidence of our personality. What's mean? Sometimes what's mean? You know what's mean?
It's kind of hard to be unbiased about yourself. You've got preconceived notions about how you want to be and how you think everybody else sees you. So.
Yeah. Sometimes we say we're proud of ourselves, right? We have high head, and so forth, right? That's what was talk about the informational barriers. And motivation barrier again is similar, but it's different. Occur when information personality is available to someone else, but that person unconsciously reject that. So sometimes we idealize ourselves, to the motivation to either self-enhance. We idealize our self-image. We put ourselves in high position, in high esteem, self-verify. We preserve our current self-image. That, of course, it's common sense. Right? When you go to view, you present yourself, right, in a nice way, right, in a pleasant way, so that the individual can accept you. So that's our motivation barrier, but we could not recognize our own knowledge easily because of that kind of barrier, that kind of appearance. So to be mindful, so we understand informational barriers and motivation barriers. Basically, this block our self-knowledge about ourselves. We could not see who we are. We could not recognize who we are. Practically, so that's why in mindfulness, to be mindful means pay attention to one present experience without evaluating or elaborating on it. Just recognize we're here without any evaluation or elaboration. Yesterday, this one lady, she went to my temple in Louisville, and she told me that right now she feels empty in doing everything. That means she doesn't have the urge, doesn't have the interest in doing things because she feels empty there. Have you had that kind of feeling before? Right? We have that kind of feeling, right? That's a feeling of, I think, one who may have the depression problems, right? So, and because of that, she said that she wants to disconnect herself from other people. And she said that even she go to the church or go to the public place to associate with people, yes, she has no time, but still, she feels empty there. Maybe in most of the circumstances. So, because she doesn't recognize her self-knowledge there. And of course, the next one we talk about the mindfulness with the personality to identity too. So how could we deal with that? How could we help her? What do you think? If you were her counselor, how could you help her to encourage her to get back with her life?
I guess first I'd have to know how she's living her life currently. I mean, she can tell me how she feels, but I don't know how she's actually living. So if I knew that, then maybe I'd give her like some sort of activity to do or something.
Yeah.
That may improve that.
But at first, when you heard her expression about that kind of emptiness is different from Buddhist emptiness, okay? And that's kind of disconnection. with other people. She tried to isolate herself because she doesn't have any motivation to socialize with other people because she feels that she's meaningless. So just listening to her expressions, could you give her some kind of advice?
She needs to find something that's meaningful.
Okay, but she could not now. Wherever she goes, she says she goes to the church, go to the public place, and so forth. She feels empty. What do you think?
I personally have kind of experienced that before, and I think the reason kind of why I feel empty is because I expect too much out of things. Like I'm expecting this, maybe when I go to hang out with friends, I'm expecting this great experience, and it doesn't live up to what I was expecting, and it kind of leads me to being a little down about that. And I feel, it's like, well, what am I getting out of life? That was, what's next? To try to fulfill this expectation I have.
Yeah. That's why we just mentioned that don't expect too much from your viewers. So that you could live and recognize yourself. Okay. So, how about others? What's your advice to her? No?
I would teach her how to be mindful. I would teach her. Because a lot of people aren't aware that they're thinking about the past and the future all the time.
That's the point.
Not living.
Compare, right?
Yeah.
They compare the good time in the past. Now they could not get have good times. That's why they feel empty, right? They feel disconnection, right? That's yes.
I feel like mindfulness is something people are open to only if they're ready to change. So I've experienced this talking with other people about it, and a lot of people really like the idea. But like we were talking before class, like sometimes we talk to some people who are close to us about mindfulness, and to them it's like, in order to practice the things that we talk about in class, in order to do that would require like complete paradigm shifts in how they think about the world.
Yeah.
And so how do you do that? Like say that woman feels empty and she has all these, and she doesn't like the idea of, she doesn't like the solution you're presenting. What do you do if people come to you?
Sometimes, I don't know whether I told you about this analogy. In Asian tradition, we had it says that the horse go back to the same path. You understand that? We tend to go back to the same path. We feel more comfortable with the path that we done before. So unless we want to take the challenges, most of the time we like to go to the same path. That's why we go to school, to change our views of life. Is that right? Whether we study math, physics, or chemistry, we change our life about some type of chemicals, right? Otherwise we just think, just water. We can drink water. And when we don't go to school, we don't know when we boil the water to the degree that's boiling, this is 1 degree and so forth. So anyway, we need to shift our paradigm in order to change. That's why it's hard. It's hard for people to change. Even they know, right? Even they may get good information, they know, but it's not easy until they have some kind of motivation. Is that right? Okay, anyway. Yeah. So again, yes, this mindfulness here. Yeah, observe at home. Just connect with your breath first. Make that initial connection with yourself, the breath. That's your own breath. As much as you make connection with your breath, you make connection with your body. You make connection with your mind. And when you feel that kind of connection within yourself, when you are socialize with other people, you feel that connection too. You feel connection with the table, the flowers on the table, and so forth. you won't feel any disconnection anymore. You won't feel empty anymore. You feel more interest in working with other people. So that's first with the breath. Okay, let's just move on. So the next one, number 3, we have personal identity. Yes.
So personal identity, some of the stuff I read is kind of a combination of, it's kind of answering the question, who am I? What am I?
Yeah.
What do I want out of life? More, it incorporates like our self-image, our thoughts, our self-knowledge, our values, and many other traits to kind of all come together and form what we see as our identity, or who we see ourselves as. And I think that my opinion is that mindfulness can really help in forming or changing your personal identity. Because we tend to have our identity wrapped up in our emotions. Like if we are focused on our emotions of the past or the future, or we value too much how we feel, or instead of having the observed self and noticing our feelings, we tend to attach to those feelings and make them part of our identity. And then that's why we have so much suffering, because we're building our identity on things that are temporal, they're shifting. So we need to build our identity on more stable things, more like present truths, and mindfulness can help you with that.
Let us go back to the to make the list of our personal identity. By the way, she's my student, my temple, and she freshman at do well. She just finished up the class. Okay, so let's say let's put the list of personal identity. So what do you have here? Can you give me the list?
Values.
Okay, value, yes. Okay.
Self-awareness.
Something more concrete.
Self-knowledge.
No, something more concrete.
More concrete.
Your laptop.
Laptop.
Your PC. That's your. You relate your laptop with yourself?
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean that in general. We relate. This is my laptop.
We relate our things to, like we think this sweater feels who I am.
That's mine, right?
Yeah.
That's mine. Don't touch my computer and so on.
Okay.
You see that? And my email. Is that right?
Okay.
It's my personality, right? So my identity.
I didn't really think about
My
things.
driver license. Right? Driver license. What else?
What about like your children? I mean, that's
You identify your children with yourself too, right? Anything that belongs to consider belong to your personal items. This is not about personality, but the one I want to discuss is, let's say, our PC or our laptop, desktop, driver license. If we recognize them, right? Do they speak about our personality? They do. Yeah. Our driver license has our picture, our signature, right? How about our laptop?
your background,
Yeah.
what you have on it.
How about our laptop? All information we download and we gather is for ourselves. That's our identity, right? But the point I want to say is that it's a temporary or last forever.
Temporary.
That's the point that she mentioned. That's the point we can handle. That's kind of personal identity. And what happens if we don't recognize ourselves? If we act one way is too two extreme way, right? One is attached to our personal identity, right? Another pole is to disassociate themselves. That's the person who lost their appetite in eating, or they have the depression, right? So let's talk about if we attach too much to our identity, what happens? This is my driver license.
When you lose it, you've lost a piece of yourself.
Yeah, and
it's hard to recover.
And what happened? Okay, let's say your laptop, or you set all information for your classes, right? Your test, exam, and so forth. What happened if you somehow accidentally you pour water, or accidentally you drop the laptop down? You're done with your laptop. It's hot. It's happened.
Oh, how would you feel?
How you feel? How you feel? Yeah.
Like if we pour the water on there, then.
How you feel?
She'd ask me to pay for it.
Okay. But sometimes
because you would feel like you lost everything you needed, right? I mean,
sometimes even she can pay for the cost of the laptop.
It doesn't bring back what's in it that pertains to you, right? And you're attached to that. Like people say, oh, my phone is my life. If I lost my phone, I'd be lost.
Yeah.
I left my phone at home today. I'm like, oops, all my notes for class are in there. Oh,
Like you see, when you went to the mountain, right? There's no internet, right? We get use of email people every day, right? We identify ourselves with other people by communication with them. They do that kind of communication by sending email, by making phone call, and so forth. But one day, we don't have internet. And actually, some of my students in the summertime, I took them to my monastery, and they don't have internet, so they have that experience. But at home, every other hours, right, they check emails or and so forth. Anyway, so if we attach too much of kind of identity, what happens then? When we lost them, we stress out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is funny. The week before, that last weekend, not yesterday, the last Sunday, I went to St. Louis to do this wedding ceremony for a new young couples, and this weekend, on Saturday and Sunday, actually on Friday and Saturday, I did a funeral service for an old man, and of course, as a monk, I observe and witness all kinds of emotions. Remember, we talked about emotion last time. Emotion different from feeling, from thinking. Remember that? And yeah, when people in the wedding ceremony, wedding party, and so forth, what are their emotions? Joy, happy. And how about in the funeral service? Sad, depressed. See, and especially if they miss their father or their fathers a lot, it's be hurtful. Many years ago, when I was a slave man, I went to stay in the temple in LA, and at that time, I went out with the monks to do the funeral service for a young boy, I think only 16 or 17-year-old. Somehow they got to the car and they crossed the railroad track and they crashed. Looked terrible, peacefully. And the sister of one of the boys, when we did the ceremony, when we finished the ceremony and we put his body into the furnace, so somehow she's so emotional. She really jumped inside that furnace because of her attachment to her brother. Of course, this is not easy to depart from their relatives, but that's what we call personal identity, ourselves and others, ourselves and our relatives. It's not easy, right? So, how can mindfulness help shyness? Shyness is relate to identity or to, right?
Well, if you're really shy, you could use mindfulness just to begin by listening to the person that you're talking to, and then that will help you have a conversation. Just being mindful on that moment and that conversation instead of worrying about what they're thinking of you or if you're afraid or all those other thoughts. You can just focus on that person and that conversation at that moment, just each word that is said. Then you'll be less focused on how shy you are because you'll be focusing on what they're saying to you.
Or sometimes we have what called stage fright, right? Public phobia. When you talk in front of people, you shy, you frightened, you shake it. Right? So this kind of mindfulness could help, and this is really good articles here. So basically, can you repeat again? How could you deal with this kind of attachment to personal identity?
Well, you have to remember that everything is temporal.
That's the point.
Everything's changing. You can't do it. Like my example earlier is my identity is partially attached to my motherhood. And when my kids are getting ready to turn 18, I felt very shaken because that whole paradigm's changing. Because now my children are adults. So that's a completely different type of mother-child relationship. So the attachment to my identity being grounded in my motherhood was causing me suffering. So, just noticing that they're individuals and I'm an individual. They have their own life and I have my own life. And that it's always going to be changing. Kind of makes me feel better just knowing that that's normal for everyone and that nothing ever stays the same. And that in itself helps a lot.
Yeah. In the views of being a mother who has all authorities to control the children, right? And now your prime need to shift that you're friends with them. The only thing you can do is to give them advice.
Only if they wanted to.
Yeah. Only if they listen to.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, forget that. And sometimes if you take this for personal, right? If they don't listen, what happens? If they don't listen, like when they were young, right? You'll be frustrated because you're attached to that kind of personal identity, right? This happened. It happened to us. Happened to our children, right? So that's why if we ask once, we have to be mindful with things are changing in attention, movement by movement. So that's why when this view shines, because we are concerned about our personality. So we reject the idea, or we could not have that kind of confidence in ourselves. That's why we shine, right? Okay. And let me go down to the list here. So in mindfulness help us instead of criticize ourselves, we weak. We don't have enough knowledge to present things to the public or to present to the groups. But instead of having that kind of self-criticism, we accept that who we are. We recognize who we are with that kind of peacefulness, without any kind of judgment, right? Without any kind of elaboration, our analysis about ourselves, and that's why we have that kind of self-awareness, of self-compassion. We recognize, understand ourselves, and we feel more compassionate toward ourselves. And after that, we could spread that kind of compassion to other people. And this, the last stage of this article is talk about here. As mindfulness is non-judging, you can be accepting of yourself rather than self-critical. Mindfulness is moment to moment, here and now awareness. You can actually be here rather than in some emerging future you feel anxious about. So when you stand in front of the class, in front of people, if you compare, I'm not good like him or her, so forth, you'll be frightened. But say, okay, I can do it, I can talk in a natural way. And I remember when I was young in high school, the teacher said, when you stand in front of the class, you look like the other student, like a chair and table, that's okay. we keep ourselves more confident. We don't have much interest about other people looking at us and so forth. But of course, when we get older, more we mature, more it's for us to approach or to know how to deal with people much easier, right? So mindfulness is turning toward and begins with, so we can stop avoiding thought, avoiding feeling and so forth, compassionate and open heart awareness and so forth, not to have any kind of condemnations about ourselves and others. So that's how we deal with that kind of personal identity, to accept as the way we are, without any kind of judgment. Okay, so the next one, number 4, yes, we talk about mindfulness and talent. Mm-hmm. Yeah, please.
Well, the articles I read focused a lot on like if we know what our talents are, we may not think that they're important, or we may not realize their full potential and just kind of let them be. But a lot of it was like not just about like recreational talents, but like your talents in the workplace, like your skills that you bring to your job. One of them was saying that mindfulness is just the actively noticing things and being aware of it. But a lot of the times we self-label our talents, and that limits ourselves. So, like one of the biggest labels in our culture is what job we have. So, whatever position you have in your job is a label, and it can restrict what you can and can't do. So that restricts the growth of your talent, like whatever, place that you're working in, whatever skill you bring to that, if you're not the boss or whatever, you may be restricted by what you're able to do, and your talent can't grow. But it's saying that just being aware of what your talents are is the first step in just accepting that I'm going to let it grow as it is. I'm not going to be restricted by labels. And then the other article is saying that we have to master those talents and not just let them sit. We need to know what they are and be confident in them and let them grow, and not be just okay with being, mediocre. And this will help in the workplace it will help you become a good leader who's able to create an environment with focus and meaning. And in the end, that will reduce mindlessness in the workplace and, in your recreational life, and it'll help you be more productive and stuff.
Yeah. I used to tell a story. This young man in St. Louis, when he was in high school, he got the full scholarship to go to, I think, Washington University, or University of Washington. St. Louis is one of the most famous medical school in the state. So, but when he went there for the first, during his freshman year, he failed most of the classes. And of course, he's so depressed and frustrated. And of course, his mom asked me, how could I give him some kind of encouragement, motivation? And so I asked him, what do you like? What do you want for your life? So he said, well, I like to be an engineer, but my parents forced me to be doctor. So I said, why don't you go with your major instead of for your parents' wishes? But my parents, but that's why I talked to them. I talked to his parents. So please let him go to choose his own career. Otherwise, even he pleased you, but he ruined his career. He could not develop his talent. Yeah. So after that day, I agreed to let him go to engineer school. But later on, he changed his career. Now he's working on his teacher license. He just passed that license. He's doing good in that major. So again, you need to recognize your talent. Of course, you may need to listen to other people's advice, right? but you have to recognize yourself. Otherwise, you don't know yourself. As once you recognize your talent, you may develop that in a mindful way. You have that more confidence. As a lot of students, especially freshman year, right? They may not know what career, what major they want to take, but later on, if they have a kind of mindfulness, some type of understanding about their own talent, they would develop that. That's why many, whenever I see the young people, I will ask them, what do you like to do for your life? They, from that time on, they would recognize the major or the career they want to pursue. So again, mindfulness is now, especially for the young people, if they know how to apply, this is so mindful, so beneficial. Here, especially in the leadership, right? Let me say, being a leader, you need to know your expertise. We could not take care of everything, right? Some of us have the skill in speech, in talking. Some of us are handyman or handy lady, right? We have different skills, so we need to know how to develop our skill. And some of us, like you have the skill of being mother, being father, being teacher, but other people may not, right? So we need to develop that kind of skill. We need to be mindful what type of talent we have. So that's why the Fortune 500 companies, they build the mindfulness to leadership development, to help the leaders to recognize their skill, to recognize their talent, to deal with or to lead the other people. You are one leader, right? In human manner, can you share?
Oh, okay. I'm an IT professional, so I'm a team lead of software engineers both in the States and in India.
It's tough for you, or you enjoy it?
I enjoy it. It's challenging. There's a lot of stress because we have a lot of deadlines, and I have to coordinate and design solutions, IT solutions, and then delegate those solutions to engineers, and then they code them, and then I have to test and make sure it's okay, and we have to do it in a certain time frame, and then we have to move them from development testing to production environments. In the middle, we have to get the business group we're designing it for to approve it and sign off on it, and so it requires a lot of patience. I'm the coordinator between the business and our team, and it requires a lot of patience. Just managing the expectations of the business team and keeping the IT team motivated and busy and making sure they always have work and that things are getting done in the right order. Then there's a whole bunch of levels of bureaucracy, a lot, and that's probably the hardest.
Politics too.
So much politics, yeah.
Okay.
It's just a lot of that
Everywhere.
stuff. Yeah.
Everywhere. Yeah. So next week we talk about mindfulness and leadership skill too. Yeah, we talk more. Yeah. So in order to lead other people, we need to recognize our talent. We need to recognize our expertise. If you don't know yourself, there's no way for you to lead other people. Right? So most you are leaders, right? You work somewhere else, or you have, or you lead someone else?
Well, I have my own business technically.
Oh, really good. How many employees do you have?
It's just me. I sell cosmetics.
Okay.
So I have to work together though with other women and sell them as well. We get together and have ideas and share ideas and stuff. So sometimes I'm the leader when I have a big party at my house and show off products and stuff. And then sometimes I go help someone else with their party and I don't get to be the boss. So it's not really a power struggle, but every now and then, you want to be the boss and you can't, and sometimes you're not feeling it, but you have to, so.
Yeah, if you're a leader, and if you're not mindful what you say, one of your order, right, people follow. Is that right? If you provide the appropriate order, they would finish the job soon. Better. But if you give the wrong order, you screw up everything. So we talk about that on this Wednesday again. Okay, so that's why we need to recognize our talent. We need to recognize our expertise. Okay, that's number 3. Number 4, Oh, is it number 5, please? Number 5 is what? Yes, human capital. So, oh, yes, you. Okay. What are human capitals?
Human capitals. Those include skills, knowledge, experience, and personal qualities. On the homework it says it can also include roles, performance, learning, and teaching, which is just a different way to say it. And let's see, I have 6 steps to personal discovery and development, and then there are also, I read an article that includes things you can do to implement mindfulness, like at work and while you're performing a skill or a role of some kind. And this is the part that I think is most interesting, so I'll show you this. Things that you can do are really important, like remembering to breathe, which we talk about a lot. Take 3 breaths before we respond to someone. This I think is really important because I know I can be a reactionary person. So if somebody asks me something, I want to be able to answer them right away because I'm impatient and I want to take care of everything at once. So I don't stop to breathe sometimes, and that's really important. Also, unitask versus multitask. Do one thing at a time, or at least try to. Pay attention to and appreciate others. Remember that a lot of other people need to do their jobs well in order for you to do your job well. And I think this is something a lot of people forget, is to value other people and the work that they do. And that can keep you grounded while you're performing a task. And the mistakes people make on the job that contradict mindfulness. Forget to listen to one another, make assumptions, project into the future, and not plan meaningfully. Example, like thought processes, or like, what if this happens, then that will happen, and it kind of snowballs, and then this creates anxiety, which can also cause mistakes. So if you're somebody who really worries about making mistakes, then it's actually more efficient to be mindful than to worry about what if this happened, because that planning isn't actually planning for anything. It's just getting you off task from what you really need to do, and that's better for human capital. Let's see. I have advice for beginners, and I have other information about it.
Okay, so how you be mindful with your own, let's say, experience of writing, whichever skill you have, whichever experience you have, how could you be mindful of that? How could you develop that kind of experience in a mindful way?
Well, for me, and based on what I've read, I think that when you're performing a task and you need to be mindful, then it just requires a pause for you to focus on exactly what you're doing in that moment and what it requires. And like it said, doing one thing at a time and focusing on the importance of what you're doing and whether or not it aligns with your values, because oftentimes people take on jobs and they don't, like, for example, the example that you gave, if you don't really want to be a doctor, then you're not going to put forth as much effort as you need to. If you really want to do engineering, then that's where your true talents are going to blossom. So being aware of that.
So let me show you one more time about the list of the skill. The skill strength. Basic skill can read, write, listen, and speak. Thinking skill, do you make careful, well-informed decision? Do you know how to learn? Of course. That's the thinking. Personal qualities, are you honest, hardworking, respectful, self-motivated, can you be trusted? Resources, do you use your most important resource, like in the class? Most of the resources I upload on the canvas, right? it's useful for you? Are you sometimes you need to do more research about the question that you write in outside my resource. Most of the time I usually rely upon my resource. Most of the time. It's sufficient for you, right, to write. Okay, and then interpersonal skill, how you interact with other people. Team players, that's very important. When you are leaders, you have to work as the teams. System, do you know how your family is a school and your class work? You know how class works. That's a skill. Talking about personal quality, let's for example, can we be trust? Of course, if we keep up with our dignity, right? We say something and we live with that word. And we have to be mindful what we say. We have to be mindful what we promise. Is that right? Sometimes, this happened to me too, sometimes because so many things that I could not remember. So sometimes I promise this person, that person. Sometimes I forget unintentionally until they remind me. This happened because I don't write the note. I don't, unless it's important appointments, I would write. Otherwise, it's a substitute, and then I try my best to remember. But sometimes I miss here and there. There's as much we don't have intention to tell lie. We keep up with our promise. That we keep up with our dignity. Okay, so that's number 5. So that's human resource, human capital. We have the skill, right? Knowledge. We talk about self-knowledge, right? Experience. And personal qualities. That is including the skill too. Okay, let's move on to the next one. How mindfulness affect quality of lives? Please. Now.
Let's see. The main thing it says mindfulness can affect your cortisol levels, which is the main hormone that causes stress. And for some reason, it just decreases it in the afternoon. The paper I read didn't really say why. But it also helps increase life enjoyment and helps cope with illness. Quality of life has to do with improved vitality. You'll have less body pain, greater social functioning, decreased anxiety and depression. And it defined quality of life as the individual's perception of their position in life in the context of the culture and value systems in which they live, and in relation to their goals, expectations, standards, and concerns. And what I got from the last part of that was, if you're, like you said earlier, if you're working towards something you're passionate about or something you love, you'll be happier. It will help control your mood and behavior and stabilize your emotions throughout the day, which would also help you get to sleep better at night. Apparently, if you're more stable throughout the day, you'll have a better night's sleep. That's what it said as well. Less cognitive and physiological activation before bed. That's pretty much everything.
So basically, what type of quality of life that you might envision?
Like, what do I envision when someone says
about the quality of lives in every aspect of life, right?
Yeah.
Your wealth, your relationship, your education, your occupation, and so forth.
Yeah, it's just, the word or the phrase itself is pretty well defined. Your quality of your entire life, every aspect.
Okay, so let's say how could you apply mindfulness in, let's say, in the quality of your relationship?
The quality of what?
of your relationship with your
relationship.
girlfriends or whatever?
Just be mindful of pretty much everything within the relationship, like what they're doing, what you're doing, if you do anything that annoys them or vice versa, and communicate. Just keep your emotions stable.
Yeah, next week we talk about marital relationship in mindfulness and all kind of relationship. Okay, thank you. So is this so important, right? Or should the last one, right?
Yes.
The last one for the personal, how mindfulness affect your personal aspiration, like loving kindness, compassion, and so forth.
Okay, yeah. So I guess the first reading or article I read was just kind of talking about aspiration and what it is, and they didn't necessarily. They said they didn't really want to associate aspiration with an intent. It's more of, I guess, an idea and a. I'm trying to think exactly how to explain this. An attitude to possibly maybe like discover something. In this particular article, the man was talking about the attitude to, I guess, discover kind of what life is all about. So that being said, how it kind of connects to mindfulness, well, as we grow older, we kind of develop our own opinions and are more, I would say, closed-minded. I mean, I guess it's not like all the way true, but I would say that a child, since they have kind of more of a learning mentality, just because they don't think they know it all, for the most part. So that's why I think how being mindful can help you kind of reverse that, by trying to just clear your mind and be accepting of anything that comes your way and not really try to judge it and put it in a certain type of category. Compassion was, like when we set up here, compassion, it was made up of kind of like three concepts of mindfulness. Let's see.
Kindness.
Kindness was in there, and kind of a idea for, I guess, the greater good of all humanity. So I already talked about kind of mindfulness. I would say kindness is kind of in the same way as I talked about being mindful, because I think like with your personal relationships, if you kind of observe and pay really specific attention to that person, you can kind of offer more kindness to them. If you learn like what exactly they like and what they dislike, you can kind of just become more on their level and connect better with them. Also, as far as maybe the focusing on the greater good of humanity, I think, again, if you view the world as people as kind of all being connected in a part of one unit, you're more likely to be able to try to maybe fix something. If one certain part of this one big unit is hurting, you can try to help that part. And again, being mindful will help that, because if you pay more attention to the people around you, even maybe people that you don't know well, if you just kind of maybe pay attention to their emotions and facial expressions, you can definitely better serve their needs. So.
Thank you. That's great. Let me take us 1 or 2 minutes to clarify. What's the difference between aspiration, value, and goal? Last time we talked about value and goal, right? They're different, right? So where is aspiration point to? Different.
I mean, I would say a goal is trying to attain something, where aspiration I don't especially completely get it, but I guess it's maybe trying to attain something without maybe having the disappointment if you don't obtain it. Kind of. I mean, because you're still having intention. Aspiration is still about intention, but it's not really goal-oriented. And I forget exactly how we define values, so I don't know how to differentiate that.
Remember when we talk about ICT, the difference between the value and the goal? If we set the goal, what happened? Yes, disappointed with expectation, right? Reach the goal. If we could not reach, we disappointed, right? Value. The value of being a professor, being a doctor, and so forth. Right? Aspiration, I think aspiration to work to that value.
And I think aspirations don't have a limit. Like you never really will reach those because if you want to be more compassionate or more understanding, you can always be more of that. So you'll always be looking for more and more. There's not like an end cap for it.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. All right, thank you. Let's always again. This note is so important, and you can read this at home. I put it on this canvas too. Mindful. This talk about compassion, how to be mindful, how to work together with. How mindfulness go together with the compassion, how to develop the kind of compassion, so forth. So let's just move on to the next topic for our Wednesday. Here, we talk about leadership. Now, I change a little bit. Can we have the list? Please. Okay, I change a little bit. Let us. I need 3 people to pick up the first 3 questions first. Number 1. Okay. Yeah, number 1. Number 2, please. Okay. Okay, okay. We threw the down, sorry. Okay, no. Okay. Rebecca. Okay. Number 3. Okay, we do Tina.
Yeah.
Okay, now talking about 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8. You don't need to pick up now. You choose by yourself because you use the model. You use the mindfulness approach, MBSR, MBCT, ICT. You explain about one of them. You're free to choose. Right? You need to choose now, but that's all you yourself. So that you can have more flexibility, right? To choose the model that you like to work with. For example, develop, we talk more, let's say enhance decision making, innovation, vision, power production, and so forth. We have flexibility of work on. Okay, thank you. So see you on Wednesday. Thank you.
I lost my purse, my badge, and my purse. Well, no one
Yeah, I have
So I mean, like
2.
10 minutes.
Did they send for you an email?
Yep.
Because it was asking people to see if they had an email.
Did you have interviews this week?
No, I didn't. That's why I ran over to Old Gloria because I'm just rock for it. You know.
How are you? Because I didn't know that.
You're still young, baby.
It
takes us 2 more times.
It'll be fine. Paradigm shifts are good things.
They have it all the time. Don't freak out.
It's the one that you're like listening to. It's not like stuff.
Oh, they are stressful.
What are the catacombs?
Well, it's
Yeah, it doesn't mean in your art.
All the key animals live.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's no cars in all of it.
Like, what are you talking about? My mom only
Grapes.
I had my just thinking about that, like,
Oh, you got me beat. Wow.
You started typing it, I have more of a variety. I have one hamster now, one guinea pig, more cats, and a dog, and a turtle. I was really
I mean, I can understand.
$3 versus $12.
Like, to share that with somebody.
No, it's a good general idea.
But I would probably,
I
obviously,
understand
obviously
that
naturally be
form
curious
of
about
one,
something.
but seriously, I don't even need
But
this.
I think that's something
Right.
to expect that,
I was like, this is a potion.
It's nothing like, it's nothing set or anything, so.
A place called Go to
Does he
the
have
Do you
to
want
do
to be
it?
500?
And they literally
They're
had
the same. And then Alzheimer's had the new school.
grass and everything on the roof for their goats.
Oh, it's probably.
Yeah, goats like stuff on it.
It might be. Let's go. Where is it? It's going to 5 and 2 and 3 involved.
That's really curious.
Acceptance P is just for pain.
Good morning.
Well, we won't know until right after this one.
Good morning. Come back. So you practice something at home? Try. How long?
This weekend, I totally forgot.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was really, really busy and I didn't think of it. I should have, because I was busy.
It's your medicine.
Yeah, it would have been nice.
Your medicine. How long? Huh? How long? How long? How long for each sit?
Well, the longest I've done it was for like an hour, but that was because it was helping me sit still while I was at acupuncture.
Oh.
So I came to like 900 breaths.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
And it really helped. But my mind wandered and I
So
never
cool.
got back. But so that might not be completely accurate. But yeah, I've been practicing mindfulness and meditation. It really helps. And I was practicing some of the sleeping techniques last night because I got woken up at 3 in the morning. And so instead of like trying to make myself go back to sleep, I just didn't worry about it and tried to follow the advice of strong. So that helped a lot.
So when you walk to the trail, you walk mindfully because it's dangerous.
Oh yeah, I was definitely mindful of each breath I took because it was a struggle.
Oh, yeah. Wow, it's too high, too
Yeah,
steep.
it was too high and it was, and the altitude was too high and the trail was way too steep.
Oh, really?
So.
You have any garden or you walk by yourself with your husband?
I was with my husband, so, but it was kind of, as I said, he's disabled, so it was one
It's
of-
safe or it is safe trail?
It was supposed to be a safe trail, but they lied. So, I would hate to see somebody try to push somebody in a wheelchair up that trail. I mean, it was literally, it felt like a 45-degree,
Really? Wow.
incline.
Did you walk around the top and go down like this?
No, it's straight
Really?
up. Yeah, it's not. It wasn't a zigzag or anything. So, and then you get up to the top, and they have a lookout tower that again climbed, and it's supposed to be a gorgeous view, but the day it was raining, so we got to see.
Not dizzy, but feel sleepy. Okay, let us start for a few minutes, please. Okay, start with 1 minute. So again, please relax yourself. Count your breath naturally. Do 1 minute first.
I think it was 14. I lost it.
Okay.
13, 14.
Okay. So you miss? No. 1 minute is easy, right? Okay, we do 2.
Another
Actually,
10 images, and those in color, and the agenda wasn't working. By the time I figured that out, it was too late for the library. So I don't feel really good about that.
I don't know if I'm more worried about the historical stuff or about the.
And there was no internet. Well, there was internet, but it was satellite internet. And so, I mean, let anybody tell you that satellite internet is just as good as cable or DSL.
In the past,
Yeah, I'm just hoping it's not
I
going to
could
be.
not log on to
Okay,
Course.
so Saratoga went into
I could not. I couldn't get it on my email. Uploading pictures, apparently downloading anything. So I am
Do you want just
2 classes
Yeah,
behind
do
it.
you want to do 5?
Nothing's ready for today because
I was actually really happy I couldn't find this one. The VTA learning system, and I guessed. And I was like,
mindful that I did my best and it was out of my
yeah.
Look at this pretty skirt she's got.
Have you?
This is one of the best skirts. Skirts.
I was.
I wanted
Imagine
ceramics in the afternoon.
and that's my strike.
Yeah.
I like my phone
Okay, so Nora,
Plus my assignment
this
is-
room.
I think I can remember most of it. Yeah, how mindfulness affects identity.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going into it with a mix. Like I feel like I know what this is, but when I'm done with the test, he scares me. So I'm gonna be like, and I don't feel like that because of what I'm saying. I mean, it's like, I mean, like this is going down.
You're gonna want to do that same thing for my husband. When we started dating, he was kind of like,
That's what we're working for.
Like that, but he doesn't want to listen to any of this.
Sharpen up those looks for it's
it's really fun, you know, I'm just there, I know that's what later on after a very nice, what the inside of a cloud looks like. So,
You can smell the cloud.
yeah, it did. It smelled absolutely wonderful. That's, I mean, it was the freshest air I've smelled in probably forever. So.
But when you went down, it is really dangerous.
That's when it convinced me that I wasn't over exaggerating how I felt, because going up, it's hard to tell what the incline was, but going down and realizing, you know, even with the walking shoes I had on, that I was starting to slip. That's when I realized it was.
Especially when this was raining too,
Yeah.
right?
So.
You tried it?
Just 2 minutes a day.
That's fine. You tried it too?
Last night I did it for a little bit. I don't really know how long it was. I just was really kind of stressed out, so I just tried to take a minute instead of focusing on the other things, you know, just try to focus on the breathing. So.
How are you?
I've been practicing at least 1 or 2 minutes every day, and then I've been trying a lot harder to use the things we learned from emotional regulation. I've been trying to apply those daily, and I did mindful walking this morning.
Plenty of ways, so you know the 4 approaches, right? So that's the next one. Wednesday, we beside you to pick and choose the techniques that you like to write about leadership skill. Have you tried it?
yeah, I haven't been doing it consistently, but I do it before tests. So there for a couple minutes before tests.
It's helpful when before you taking the test, you close your eye 1 minute. That's all.
I didn't meditate, unfortunately, but I did pay more attention to how for some reason, how I ate this week. I cooked a lot.
Oh, okay.
I tried.
You have good food, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You tried it?
Yeah, I tried like this week because just kind of test coming up and lots of work, so I try to do like 5 minutes every day and see how much work.
So for the regular meditators like us, sometimes we need to make a judgment. But for me, afternoon is better. Late afternoon, 5, 6 o'clock, we have more energy. In the morning, sometimes we may feel